Okay, we have been talking of willingness. I would like to give some examples of unwillingness. You know, people who came to Babuji Maharaj and very reluctantly said, Babuji, I wish to give you a trial. And Babuji would say, I am very grateful to you. And they were even more flattered. They said, no, Babuji, you don't have to be grateful because after all, you are trying to do some good for me. Perfunctory courtesy, a grudging acceptance that somebody is going to help you. And then Babuji would give a sitting. And at the end, they would say, but Babuji Maharaj, I didn't feel anything. Yes, it is my fault, I am telling you. But if I had done more, it would not have been good for you. Yes, but Babuji, how can you give me more and it is not good for me? Then Babuji said something which we should all remember. He said, anything too much is bad for us. Whether it is food or drink or money, God gives us enough. And we should not ask for more. And people are used to asking for more because it is lalach, I am telling you, it is greed. In spirituality, there must be no greed, there must only be aspiration for growth. There must be longing, there must be love. What about too much of love, Babuji Maharaj, one man asked. He said, I am telling you, love cannot be too much. It can fill the whole universe and yet be not too much. Love is the one thing that you can give and it comes back to you. And they went on to explain, there is a law which says any thought you send out will come back to you. You send out good thoughts, they come back to you. You send out bad thoughts, they come back to you. Often we think somebody else is doing it, but it is our own doing. And love is the only thing which you send out, which if it comes back to you, it adds to your love. Everything else subtracts from you. Then I told him about a proverb in Tamil, you see. Adavakka minjinal amrutabam visham. Even Amrit, the immortal, the low, the immortality, something like that. Even that can be too much. Everything must be measured. And he said that transmission must be subtle and must be of the correct dosage. He said dosage is very important. Because suppose an injection is good for you and you give 2 injections at the same time, patient can die, although the medicine is good for you. So, right time, appropriate dosage, these 2 things are to be remembered. But these people, they were not willing to try Sahaj Marg. They had only sat with a grudging sense of, trying it. And they left. And Babuji said, look here, I have wasted 1 hour with them. I said, but why do you waste? He said, well, I am obeying Lalaji Maharaj. He said, bring more and more and more to this way of Sahaj Marg for their emancipation, for their good, for their evolution. But they don't accept, and what can I do if they are unwilling? He says, we can train animals easily. You can train a dog. You can even train a lion in such a way that the trainer can put his head into the mouth of the lion and it will not bite. But human beings are almost impossible to train. I said, why? He said, God gave them will and they misuse it. God gave them intelligence, they misuse it. Both are to be used for their evolution. Intelligence is meant to find out what is the best thing for you, and willpower is to enable you to do it for your own good. Both are misused. I said, don't you think, Babuji, that God made a mistake in giving human beings intelligence and will? Animals, birds, they seem to survive better. He said, in a way, you are right. But remember, Parsarthi, that God never makes mistakes. Because if He did not give, even the few people who achieve would not achieve. So here we count in terms of 1 in million, 1 in 100 million, and not in 1 in 10. I said, Babuji, that's why so many people join and leave. He said, yes. Because they expect instant results. They want to come and be instantly a saint. without knowing what is a saint and what is an instant. An instant can be as long as a yuga if they don't do a thing properly. And a yuga can be an instant to a man who does it, and in that instant he has transcended time. So you see willingness, how important it is. And jokingly on the other side, I would talk about unwillingness in a different way. That when we sat in the evening with Babuji Maharaj, every evening, the Malid used to water the bricks in the courtyard and bring his chair and his hookah and 3 chairs here, and a charpai in front. And I used to sit on the charpai facing him. And it would be 6 o'clock, 6:30, 7, 7:30. Some people would feel hungry, but unwilling to say so. They would say, Babuji Maharaj, are you not feeling hungry? You should go and eat. And Babuji would laugh and answer, no, you are a young man. You go and eat. He would go. 8, 2 people would go. 8:30, 3 people would go. Again, Babuji has to tell them, you please go. And after they have all gone, he would probably eat at 10 o'clock. Then he would come back and sit in his chair. Now, instead of 40, we would be about 10 or 12 people. Again, this unwillingness to say, I am asleep, I want to go, Babuji, and go away. They would say, Babuji, don't you think you should go to bed? No, I am a night bird, ullu. What is the English for ullu? Owl. You understand owl? I am a night bird, the owl. You go to bed. This was repeated about 10 times until all had left. I was the only one sitting. And he would say, Parthasarathi, it is amazing how when they are hungry, they tell me to go and eat. And when they are asleep, they tell me to go to bed. It used to go on every evening, almost. So Babuji said, willingness they are unable to show and develop. Unwillingness they feel, but they cannot express. Why don't people tell me honestly the truth? Then he gave another great lesson. Say what you mean and mean what you say. What I told Brother Bhaskar yesterday. Because it's very important. We neither say what we mean. When we hate somebody and we are in a party and we are forced to see that person, we shake hands and say, oh, I am very happy to meet you. And in your heart of hearts, you think if you had a dagger, you would just stab that fellow in the back. This is sheer hypocrisy. And mean what you say. Punctuality is meaning what you say. If you say, I'll be there at 8 o'clock, a good German is there 2 minutes before 8 o'clock. Not at 8 o'clock. Not at 2 past 8, but at 2 before 8, because you must not be too early. Once I was sitting in a hotel in Hanover, and one Mr. Robert Koch had an appointment to meet me at 8 for breakfast. And I had given him instructions. He was coming from about 50 miles away, 80 kilometers from the farmland around Hanover. I was sitting with a friend from a big firm with whom I had a good relationship, and he came. He was sitting and we were having coffee together. Suddenly I saw an old man pacing the pavement up and down outside, because they have all glass doors and glass windows, He said, Shari, I think that is your guest. I said, why do you say so? He said, well, it's 10 to 8. And he is pacing the pavement. I said, why you could come in? He said, no good German will come too early. So he came in precisely at 1 minute to 8 and was at the table. Guten Morgen. I said, Mr. Robert Koch? He said, yes, but how did you know, Chariji? That sort of punctuality we must have. But in Babuji's case, the people would say, I will come to see you tomorrow, Babuji, and not come for a week. And he would say, so-and-so, why didn't you come? I was waiting for you. No, Babuji, I was disturbed that morning. There was no water. I couldn't bathe. Once Mr. Swaminathan, my colleague who is now upstairs long ago, he came with me to Shahjahanpur. Babuji used to offer tea, and on a small, this terracotta plate, mud plate, a few, bundi or something like that, kurbura, chana kurbura we call it. Swaminathan said, oh, I don't eat before I bathe. So Babuji laughed and said, Swaminathan, In the beginning of my sadhana, I also used to do it like that. Still Swaminathan did not relent. And he went away. So Swaminathan said, Babuji Maharaj said, what is this problem with Brahmins that they won't eat before bathing and all this sort of nonsense? You know, I think they have a big load of sin that they can't do anything without a bath. And he laughed. He said, this is a disease from which we don't suffer, having to bathe early morning. Poor Swaminathan, he was not aware of it. Later on, I told him. See. So, you see, we have habits which are not good for us. We must develop habits which are good, but we cannot develop. Smallest thing being punctuality, important thing being say what you mean and mean what you say. See, none of these things we obey. And then, of course, there is the courtesy to be shown to the Guruji. You know, people used to come and touch his feet. But I have seen boys coming and just touching his knees. They are too, lazy to bow down before him. But perfectly they touch and go away. Babuji used to laugh. So this was going on like that, willingness, inability to say what you mean, hoping that he will not catch the lie. He could catch a lie even if you lied in Bangalore and he was in Shajapur. All this shows how poorly people understood Babuji, his greatness, his all-pervasiveness, his ability to know everything anywhere. Never understood, which means they did not know he was a guru. And all that they said about you are Babuji Maharaj, you are eternal, you are this, you are that, was false praise, hypocrisy. Once we were in, on our first trip to the US in 1972, and this man, we had only one Indian Abhyasi there at that time, Dr. R.P. Singh. He was a dentist. And he had arranged a lecture in the evening for Babuji. Of course, lecture for Babuji meant lecture for me. I had to speak. And Babuji was sitting there. And before the speech began, this man with a mic with a 100-yard cord like they use on the stage, he was walking up and down introducing Babuji. And at one stage said, I have brought God before you. There is God sitting right in front of you. Please take advantage of Babuji, isko band karo. So I didn't know what to do. Then I adopted a ruse. I took a glass of water and I gave it to him and whispered in his ear, stop. I said, Babuji, what was wrong with what he said? He said, nothing. If he had seen me as God, he could have said it. But without ever having seen me as God or even as a human being properly, how can you talk like this on a stage? That was the first practical lesson, you see. The second practical lesson on that tour was when we were in Boston. They had put out a lot of flyers. They were expecting about 200 people to come for the evening talk. I think it was in the MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology. At 5 o'clock, the announced time, there were precisely 5 people. We waited till 15:15. Then I asked Babuji, should I speak? He said, why do you ask this question? I said, only 5 people. He said, what does it matter how many people there are? What you have to say, you have to say. It's a question of how many people are listening to it. So you go ahead. See, 5 people or 5,000 makes no difference to you. So that was another lesson, you see. We don't need a big audience. That is only a matter of pride and ego. Oh, 5,000 people came to hear my lecture. Like you find in the newspaper, So-and-so gave a lecture on the Maidan in Bombay, and there were 100,000 people to listen to him. We hear this all the time, That was another important lesson on that trip. There were so many, we had to climb upstairs. He had bedrooms which are very inconvenient, beds which are too high. He never complained. Of course, because I had the cooking in my charge, there was no problem about food. But we had to visit 3 centers, or rather, deliver 3 lectures every day. One in the morning at about 10, one at 4, one at 6:30. And we had to drag him along, every time. And I think we were going from, I don't know, from Stonington or somewhere to another place by car. And as usual, Babuji was in front with another person between him and the driver. And we were 3 at the back. And at one place, there was a slight rise in the road. Very slight, probably along the length about 6 feet. And a car with all students in it banged into us from the back. Banged with considerable force. So that Babuji, like that, and he had pain in the neck for 3 days. Of course, we pulled over and the boys pulled over. Mrs. Grace Kimball was with us. She was driving. And she said, what you boys doing, what have you done? Oh, ma'am, we are very sorry. No, we didn't mean to. But then the police came and they took measurements and nothing happened. They don't fight and quarrel like we do in India. Very gentlemanly agreement on both sides. Which incidentally I think is something that is very bad in that society. It's not good. Because if you can't let out your steam at such places, under such situation, you are bottling it all up. I have often said to these overseas people, that I have no time for unnecessary courtesy and politeness. Courtesy and politeness are for an effete civilization with people who have nothing to do. They can get up, bow again here, allow their wives to go ahead of them, hold the door open, bring a glass of water to the wife. Things which, generally shock Indians. I am not now talking of either male chauvinism or female chauvinism. The idea that you should not shout, you should not bicker, you should not, even bring a fault to the front by expressing it. Eventually, between a couple, it ends in a divorce or a separation. Because one day, all that thing, you've always been giving me soup like this. But why didn't you tell me, honey? Don't call me honey after giving me rubbish to eat. Take your suitcase in hand and go away. I have heard many of our Abhyasis, males, tell me in Europe, that even people who have been 18 years together, 20 years together, they say, Chari, my suitcase is always packed. I said, why? You have been together 18 years. No, but I can come any evening and find my wife missing. Or she may throw me out. So my suitcase is always packed. This has happened to my personal knowledge in half a dozen cases. Much to my astonishment, even more sorrowful. All because of this bottling up, Small thing like, why do you give me soup without salt would have been enough. Oh, honey, it's the same, it's wonderful. And in Germany, we had salad and we had soup. I had bread, but Babuji would generally not eat bread unless he was hungry, and then half a slice he would dip in the soup and eat it, much to the amusement of our hosts. One day there was soup in a flat dish, like in science we call it Petri dish, flat Petri dish. He put his finger and said, look, I have too much soup. And everybody was, I won't say they were shocked, but they were very touched by his innocent handling of the situation. They said, no, but Babuji, it's not too much, it's just a little. Then he said, no, I'm telling you, see, sucked this, and then took a spoon and started eating. But the most amusing episode was one day when we had salad. My wife was with me on that occasion. And he asked her in Hindi, daughter-in-law, come here, see if there are horns on my head. So she said, but why horns, Babuji? He said, I've been eating so much grass. Surely by now I must have become a cow. And he laughed uproariously at his own joke, And he couldn't eat salad. He hated this stuff. In India, it's not, we don't eat salad because in tropical countries, it's not hygienic too. They are generally not grown properly and they are not washed properly. Vegetables we know how to handle. But salads, generally we don't eat. It's a modern, habit developed in the last 15, 20 years. and so he could not eat it. But in London, we had a very charming hostess with whom we stayed. And her husband was generally, incoherent when spoke, and generally silent. He listened to her and carried out her wishes. One day she said, Babuji, would you like to have some chapati?